The Shadow Minister, Danny Kruger.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chair. So here we are. They've had 15 years, 14 years complaining about welfare reform, while the Conservative government fixed the catastrophic mess of the unemployment benefit that we inherited, the alphabetic spaghetti of welfare that we had in 2010, if any of those members can remember it. All of those benefit traps that we fixed, introducing universal credit, making work pay, supporting people off welfare and into jobs. So after the first decade of our time in government, 100,000 fewer people economically inactive every single year of the 2010s. In 2019, we had the lowest number of workless households since records began, and then COVID hit. And the party opposite clamouring for more welfare throughout that period. At the end of that period, I will give way to the Honourable Lady in one moment. After the COVID incident, as we left office, we were introducing reforms to fix the health and disability benefit system. All of it opposed every step of the way by the party opposite. I'll give way to the Honourable Lady.
Does the honourable member really believe that anyone could truly think that after the 14 years of the last government led to a 17% pay gap, that their government really did make sure that disabled people were, in fact, well paid?
Well, Madam Chair, the fact is, in our time in government, we increased the numbers of people, disabled people, in work significantly. 2 million more people, disabled people, more in work at the end of our time in government than before. So I'm afraid across there was much to regret about the last years of our time in government. I was a critic of them myself. But on welfare, Madam Chair, throughout our time in government, we have a very proud record of improving the broken system that we inherited. So here we finally are, a year into their time in government. They've had all this time to come up with a plan, and we have absolutely nothing. So Clause 5 of the bill did have some changes to the system, but they're going to scrap that today. And I want to pay tribute to the rebels on the benches opposite, finding their voice, showing what Parliament can do. I particularly pay tribute to the Honourable Lady for York Central, the real Prime Minister, sitting there on the real front bench. I respect and honour them all. But as for this front bench, they're chopping the bill's name in half. It's now nothing to do with PIP at all. So we've got no reform to welfare and certainly no savings. The fact is this is now a spending bill. This isn't a savings bill, it's a spending bill. If you look at the impact assessment that's just come out, I think it's the third impact assessment we've had in the last 3 weeks. You add up the savings from cutting UC Health for the new claims, that's a little over £5 billion. Then you minus the cost of raising the standard allowance, that's a little over £5 billion. And what do you get? You get £120 million extra cost over the next 4 years, and then plus the £1 billion of extra employment support. So that is Labour's idea of saving money on welfare, actually spending more at the end of this bill's process. And of course they've also spent the money that they thought they were saving from the PIP changes before they did the U-turn. And Madam Chair, they're even now they're on a wing and a prayer financially. So the OBR, on which the tottering Chancellor is relying to hold up her sums, the OBR assumes that the on-flow to benefits will fall halfway back to their 2019 levels over this Parliament. And if they don't do that, there's another £12 billion that the Chancellor is going to have to find. But why will new claims reduce under this government? There's still a £50 a week incentive to get onto UC Health. There's no reform to PIP for at least another year. And the Minister has said that his famous eponymous review is not aimed at saving money anyway. The member for Aberdeen North earlier challenged him to confirm that. I think he has confirmed that from the dispatch box, that there will be no savings from his review. And meanwhile, Madam Chair, the UK is hemorrhaging jobs thanks to the national insurance rise. And we've got the Employment Rights Bill coming down the track. The OBR forecast didn't include in its forecast the likely impact of the unemployment bill that they're introducing. That's something that we can look forward to later in the autumn. So, Madam Chair, we are in a deep fiscal hole, and of course we do need welfare reform. In fact, we need welfare cuts. And that's why we wanted to support the government when they set out their intentions. And we said we would support the bill if they reduced the spending, got more people into work and pledged for no new taxes. But they didn't do any of that. And so we don't support the bill. But we do have a further set of proposals. My friend from Hendon challenged me to come up with some actual alternatives. So we're doing that. We've got some amendments to that very effect. So first, Amendment 45, which will improve the quality of the assessments. There's a bigger piece of work, and I do welcome the fact that the government is looking closely at the process of assessments. But right now, we could make one clear and simple improvement. In 2019, 84% of PIP assessments were conducted face-to-face. Last year, it was 5%. So that was a COVID change. That was a COVID change. That was absolutely a COVID change. That simply was that was a COVID change that wasn't changed in time. And I totally agree. The fact is, the work-from-home culture really took off at DWP and with its subcontractors, and that does need to change. I recognise that. Why isn't this government doing that? So the result of the system we have, which is not being changed by this bill, is that people are at the mercy of some distant, faceless assessor on the end of the phone. Now, of course, there will be people who can't manage a face-to-face assessment, and we would authorise the Secretary of State to specify those circumstances. And, of course, it's right not to call people back for repeat assessments, which we were doing as well. It's a change we were introducing, and I'm glad they're sticking with it. But for the great majority of cases, we've got to get back to those face-to-face assessments for the sake of the claimants as well as for the taxpayer. And then secondly, Madam Chair, Amendment 50, that we have 1,000 new PIP claims a day. This has doubled since COVID. And more than half of the increase is in mental health cases. For UC Health, it's more like three-quarters. Now, of course, distress is real in our society and it is rising. I do not disparage the reality of many of these claims. But as the Minister himself has said, the incidence of disability in our society is rising by 17%, but the benefit claims are rising by 34%. And for some of the less severe mental health claims, it's far worse. So, Madam Chair, anxiety disorders. In January 2020, there were 7,000 claims for people with anxiety disorders. This year, it was 31,000. In 2020, in January 2020, 155,000. Now, 365,000 for anxiety and depressive disorders mixed. For autism, 60,000, gone up to 183,000. And the member for Sheffield Hallam mentioned ADHD. That's gone up from 29,000 to 115,000 over the last 5 years. So, happy to give way.
I wonder whether the Shadow Minister realises that according to the DWP's own statistics, the fraud rate for PIP is 0.2%. I just don't want him to feel like a mug.
Yeah. Well, I'm not talking about explicit fraud. These awards are being given. And no doubt the assessment is judging them to be eligible. There's no necessary deliberate attempt to defraud the system. What we're doing is we've created a system whereby one is incentivised to seek these higher and more expensive claims. Happy to give way, yes.
Make sure that our language is parliamentary and respectful.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to pull up the Shadow Minister on the ADHD statistics that he says. Will he recognise that women were not recognised as having ADHD for many, many years, and thus there is a backlog of many years of women now accessing their right to get ADHD? And like me, many women were misdiagnosed with depression and anxiety disorders instead of ADHD.
Yeah. I'm sure the Honourable Lady is right. I mean, those disorders have also increased extraordinarily in recent years. And I take her point, and I was struck by the point she made in her speech, that many people with ADHD should benefit from the workplace, could be in work and needs to be supported for that. I don't think it's right that we are consigning so many people to a life on the sofa with the curtains drawn, told that they have no value, no contribution to make, and will receive no help. We've had 4,000 more people got PIP last year because of dyslexia, twice the number from before COVID, 10,000 for OCD. Again, that number has doubled. So I think, I just want to acknowledge what the charity Mind have said about this, and of course they want to increase benefits, so I'm not citing them in support of my amendments, but our amendments. But they have said what people with mental health conditions need is decent mental health support, proper employment programmes and flexible workplaces. That is what is needed. Let me just finish with our last amendment, Madam Chair, which is the other place we can look for real savings is with foreign nationals claiming health and disability benefits. And I'm very aware that many visas have no recourse to public funds, but people with indefinite leave to remain do have recourse to public funds, and we have 800,000 people likely to claim indefinite leave to remain in the course of this Parliament. We don't have enough data from the DWP, so I would urge the Government to have more transparency about the information that's received. But we do believe on the basis of the information we have, that some hundreds of thousands of people are in this country claiming PIP and UC Health who are foreign nationals. I don't include EU citizens, by the way, who have rights under the withdrawal agreement here. Welfare is simply not part of the contract that we make with people coming to this country. They are given visas on the basis that they will support themselves, and our amendment would make that principle real. Mr. Speaker, Madam Chair, every pound spent on benefits for someone who could be supported into work is a pound less for someone else who can't work, who can never work, and who deserves all our sympathy and our support. We cannot wait another year for this dithering, hamstrung government to come forward with the changes we need. Our amendments offer a path to a better system that is fair for claimants and fair for taxpayers, and I commend them to the House.